Hello, beautiful people, and welcome. In today's video, we are talking about our special right triangle, our 30-degree, 60-degree, and 90-degree triangle. In this triangle, the hypotenuse is twice as long as the shorter leg, and the longer side, not the hypotenuse, but the longer leg, is the square root of 3 times as long as the shorter leg. So what does that mean? So let's say we have a triangle. Okay. And this triangle is, as you can see, longer on one side, shorter on the other side. Again, longer, shorter. Now, the longest side is still your hypotenuse. So we're going to do across the street from 90 degrees. Here's your hippo. Then you have a short leg and a longer leg. So I'm writing longest for the hypotenuse because we're not talking about the longest. We're talking about the longer. Okay. In the triangle, the hypotenuse is twice as long as the shorter leg. So let's start with the shorter leg. Let's call the shorter leg X. So the hypotenuse is twice as long as the shorter leg. Now the longer side is square root of 3 times as long as the shorter leg. So this is your pattern. Now, how do you know which one's longer, which one's shorter? Sometimes you can't really tell. That is very specific to the degree of where it's from. So this is always across the street from the 90 degree. Your shorter leg is always across the street from your 30 degree. Now that goes into our previous unit where we were arranging triangle legs and triangle angles based off of size. The shortest side is across the street from the shortest, or excuse me, the smallest angle. So shortest side, smallest angle. Largest, 90 degrees, largest hypotenuse. And then you have your middle, which is your 60-degree angle. Again, this one's a little bit more difficult. It's not the 45, 45, 90 pattern. This one's a little bit more difficult. Where you put your pattern is super duper important. Before we move on, let's go ahead and do one quick example of multiplying and dividing radicals that will come up. So when you're multiplying radicals, you can only combine the things that are inside of the house. If it's not inside the radical, like this 3 right here, you cannot combine it with anything else. So we have 3 times 6 times 3 is 18. And then you can refactor it and simplify it. So 18 is 9 times 2. Square root of 9 is 3. Now that this secondary 3 is no longer inside the radical, we can combine it with our original outside of the house 3 here. So we have 9 times the square root of 2 as our simplified radical. When you are dividing, make sure to rationalize the denominator. So we're going to take that square root of 6. Check first if you can simplify. In this case, square root of 6 cannot be simplified, so we're going to jump in and just multiply top and bottom by the radical. That 3 in the denominator is not inside a radical. It's not inside the house, so that part doesn't matter. It's going to stay. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 6 is 36, and now we simplify. In the numerator, 12 can be rewritten as 4 times 3. In the denominator, square root of 36 is 6. Again, keep simplifying. Square root of 4 is 2, so we have 2 times square root of 3. 6 times 3, I think we already said that earlier, was 18. And again, we have things that are not inside the house. 2 is not inside the house. 18 is not inside the house. So those two, no pun intended, can't be simplified. So 18 and 2 can be simplified as the square root of 3 and 9. Now 3 and 9 cannot be simplified. 3 is inside the radical. 3 is inside a house. 9 is not inside the house. So therefore they cannot be combined. Right, let's go ahead and do our special right triangles, our 30, 60, 90 triangles, by starting out to find the leg lengths. Now, just like with our previous triangle, our 45, 40, 90 triangle, there's just 3 steps. Step number 1, you're going to label your pattern. You're going to set up a mini equation. And then you're going to solve for x. Now I'm looking at my questions, and they already have x there. So if you wanted to, you can remove that x and put a different letter there if you want. So I'll do that. I'll remove my x's here, here, and you guys can't see this, but I am removing a third one. And we can put any letter we want, or we can just leave it blank and then figure it out. So let's put this as letter A. So for our pattern, here's how you label it. First, look at the smallest side. Go across the street from your smallest side. That's going to be your x. Next, go across the street from your hypotenuse. That's going to be your 2x. And then your leftover middle, that's the one that's going to be x root 3. So once you see this, then you can set up your mini equations. Now, what do we have? We have x is 4. That's a mini equation. Then we have x root 3 is equal to a. That's a mini equation. Now, 2x, we can solve for that. Nothing wrong with that. But that's not what they want. They don't really care about that. Okay, let's solve for x. Done, right? X is already solved for us. So to solve for a, this one here, we're going to replace x with 4. I don't even need to multiply it because 4 is not inside a radical. 4 is not inside a house. And we're done with that one. Let's try it again. Again, I erased this one here, so let's call it A since that's what we called it last time. It doesn't have to be A. It can be any letter you want. Step number 1, label the pattern. Find your 30 degrees. Across the street from that, that's your x. Find your 90. Across the street from that is your 2x. And your leftover is your 60 degree x root 3. Step number 2, set up mini equations. You got x equals 6. You got a equals x root 3. Solve for x. Okay, well, that's done, right? You're going to replace it. You got 6 root 3 as your unknown side. Okay, let's go again. Find your x, which is always across the street from your longest side. Let's call this A here. Find your 90 degree angle, your hypotenuse, and that's going to be your 2x. And here we have our x root 3. Write out your mini equations. We got x equals 2 root 3. Then we got a is equal to x root 3. Now we're trying to replace x, so all of this that I just highlighted goes inside of x here. And then we have our other root 3. So now we have to simplify, so you do have a little bit more steps. 3 is inside the house, 3 is inside the house, 3 times 3 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3, no house, outside of the radical. So we have A is 6. Okay, let's do some more examples. Okay, across the street is your X, which already is X, so I'm going to keep it. Across the street from 90 is your X. Oh, I almost messed up. It's 2X. And across the street from your 60 is your X root 3. Now this one's a little bit more difficult because they're not giving you an X value, right? We don't have a number across the street from our 90 degrees. We don't have anything across the street from our 30 degrees. The only mini equation we have is X root 3 is equal to 18. This is where your division will come in. So when you are dividing, solving for X, you're going to divide both sides by the radical attached to your X. So you're going to divide by the square root. Now, the square root that's attached to X, those undo each other. Those are done. Now here, this is where you're going to need to rationalize the denominator. Decimals are not allowed. You give me a decimal, it's going to be completely wrong. No pity points, nothing. So to rationalize the denominator, you're going to take that radical in the denominator, that square root of 3 for this example. You're going to multiply it top and bottom. You get 18 root 3 divided by 3 times 3 is 9. Keep simplifying. So you have X is equal to 18 root 3 divided by 3. Now the 3's cannot simplify, but 18 is not in a house and 3 is not in a house. So we can do 18 divided by 3. What we cannot do is 3 and 3. 3 is in a house, 3 is in a radical. That's not okay. So that means for our X value, we have 6 root 3. Okay. All right, let's do it again. Step number 1, label your pattern. Here's 30 degrees. Across the street from 30 degrees is your X, which they already gave us. 90 degrees is your 2X. 60 degrees is your X root 2. Okay, go ahead and set up your mini equation. We have X root 3, not 2. That was weird. Hopefully you guys were screaming at me in the screen. And that's equal to 14 root 3. Now for this example, it is a little bit easier in my opinion. So if you already are screaming, hey, I know the answer, fantastic, good for you. I'm going to continue with the pattern here just to make sure you guys are comfortable. So when you're solving for X, you're going to divide by the radical, simplify, in this case, we have a square root of 3 on top, square root of 3 on the bottom. That goes away. We have 14 for our X value. So a lot easier than that original equation. Example. All right, let's go again. Okay, where's your 30? Here's your 30. 30 and X, so they already gave us X. 90 is your 2X. And 60 is your X root 3. Okay, set up your mini equation. We have one mini equation at 10 is equal to x root 3. So just like the two examples prior, we're going to have to solve for x. Take your radical, your square root of 3, divide it. X is then equal to 10 divided by square root of 3. This is where you're going to need to rationalize the denominator. Multiply by root 3, top and bottom. We get x is equal to 10 times the square root of 3 divided by square root of 9. Simplify. We get 10 root 3 over 3. 3 is inside a house. 3 is outside a house. Those cannot combine. 3 and 10 cannot combine because 10 divided by 3 is not a pretty number. So we have our x value. Right, moving forward, let's go ahead and keep solving. Hopefully this is starting to feel a little repetitive for you. That's the goal. We do a lot of examples so we have all of our patterns memorized. So across the street, we have x. Across the street, we have 2x. And across the street here, across the street from 60 degrees, is our x times square root of 3. Set up your mini equation. In this case, our mini equation is this one, which is bringing me a lot of joy because even though I have to do something to solve for x, it's just dividing by 2. So that means x is 4. So now y is equal to x times root 3. But if we know x is 4, we can just write it in front. And that's the answer there. Okay, let's go again. Cross the street from 30 is x. Across the street from hypotenuse is 2x. And across the street from 60 is x root 3. Set up your equations, your mini equations. 2x is equal to 80. So one equation. The next one we have is y is equal to x times root 3. Again, could be worse. Oops, I'm not sure why I divided by 3. It should be division by 2. That was weird. See, can I save it? Kind of. There it is. That's a 2. So you have x is equal to 40. Bring that x right over here. So you have y is equal to 40 root 3. Okay, another example. Again, across the street from 30 and beautiful people, I am picking up the tempo just a little bit. So if I'm going too quick for you, go ahead and pause the video so you can write the examples down. Or if I'm not going quick enough and these are getting repetitive for you, go ahead and work on the question before I do. So solve it before I do. So across the street from 30 is x. Across the street from the hypotenuse is 2x. Across the street from 60 is x times root 3. Set up your mini equations. We got x root 3 is equal to y. Here we're dividing by 2, x is equal to 15 divided by 2 is not pretty. 7.5. So it could be worse, right? But it's not a perfect number. So remember, decimals are not allowed. So you have to keep it as a simplified fraction or a whole number. So we're going to take that 15 halves, place it in for x. Now when you write this out, all you have to do to multiply is just place that root 3 on top. We got 15 root 3 divided by 2, like that. Okay, we have a few more examples again. Please make sure you're writing all of these examples down. All right, let's go ahead and do this. Now we're going to be finding the hypotenuse. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more examples, and then we'll call it good for this video. Okay, across the street from 30. And again, these ones have X. So if you wanted to remove the X and write a different letter, that's fine. I'm going to do that here. Hopefully I can use my whiteout. And you can choose any letter you want. I think we were choosing A for a little bit, so let's just stay there with A. So A, and A. Okay, across the street from 30 is your X. Across the street from 90 is your 2X. And across the street from 60 is your X root 3. Set up your mini equations. We got X is equal to 3. A is equal to 2X. Plug that in. We get 2 times 3. A is equal to 6. As long as you have your patterns and you set up your mini equations, some of these go really quick. Okay, let's go again. Seems icky, so I don't know if that's going to give us a hard time, but let's check. Okay, where's 30? 30 is here. Across the street from 30 is X. Across the street from 90 is 2X. And across the street from 60 is X root 3. Okay. Let's set up our mini equation. And now we need to solve for X. Don't let this scare you. You're going to be okay. Promise. Okay. Whenever you're solving for X here, you're going to divide by the radical. Okay, you're going to divide radical. When you're dividing by radical, it goes into the denominator. Okay, so we have 9 root 3 divided by 2 root 3. X is left over. Notice you have a square root of 3 on top. Notice you have a square root of 3 on the bottom. So in this example, you do not need to rationalize your denominators. They go away. And you're left with X is 9/2. So in this example, they are asking us for 2X. So that is your secondary mini equation. Our X is 9/2. Now, if you want to use this in a calculator, that's fine. We got 2 parentheses 9/2. Make sure that 9/2 is in parentheses. Otherwise, it will give you the wrong answer. So A is equal to 9. Okay, let's go again. Across the street from 30 is your X. Across the street from 90 is your 2X. And across the street from 60 is your X root 3. Set up your mini equation. Simplify and solve for X. Now this one we will need to rationalize the denominator. We have a root 3 in the denominator. So you're going to multiply top, multiply bottom by that square root of 3. We got 6 root 3. We cannot combine 6 and 3. 6 is outside of a house, 3 is inside a house. 3 times 3 is 9. Keep simplifying. Square root of 9 is 3. Now 6 is outside of a house. 3 is outside of the house. So yes, 6 and 3 can be simplified. So we have X is equal to 2 root 3. Now what are they wanting us to solve for? They want us to solve for A, which is our secondary equation. a is equal to 2 times, what is x? X is 2 root 3. Don't let that scare you. Now, I put parentheses. You don't have to. 2 is outside a house, and then our secondary 2 is outside the house. So we have 4 root 3 as our answer. 2 more examples, beautiful people, and I promise we're done. Thank you for holding on. Okay, now sometimes they're going to give you more than one triangle, so be careful on that. You want to make sure that you find your 30 degrees. There should be a right angle here. Okay, 30 degrees is here. Across the street from 30 is x, which is already x, which is good. Across the street from 90 is your 2x. And then across the street from 60 is your x root 3. So set up your mini equations. We have 16 is equal to 2x. Then we have y is equal to x root 3. And then we just have the x here. So let's solve for x by dividing by 2. X is equal to 8. Take that 8, replace it. Y is then equal to 8 root 3. And then x, we just solve for it there. Last example, beautiful people, find your 30 degrees. 30 degrees is here. Across the street from 30 degrees is x. Across the street from 90 is your 2x. And across the street from 60 is your x root 3. Set up your mini equations. We got x root 3 is equal to 10 root 5. Don't let that scare you. You're going to be okay. Divide by your square root of 3. Now this one, yes, you will need to rationalize the denominator. So take that square root of 3. You're going to multiply that top and bottom. You have x is equal to 10. 5 times 3 is 15. 3 times 3 is 9. Keep simplifying. Oh, you guys can't see. Sorry about that. 3 and 10 cannot simplify, not divisible. And then 15 is 3 times 5, which again can't be simplified. 3 and 15, one's in the house, one's not in the house, can't simplify. So we have our x value. Now they are asking for y as well, so that's our second equation. Again, don't let that scare you. Seems a little messy here, but that's okay. So you have a choice to make here. You can either type this into the sorry about that. You can type this into the calculator if you'd like, or you can do this by hand. So in a calculator, it would look like this. 2 parentheses 10 square root 15. Make sure to close that 15 divided by 3 and then close that parentheses. And it gives us an icky. Even if I do a fraction, it won't do it. So it looks like we're going to have to do this by hand. Again, not scary. Put a 1 underneath. 2 times 10. We're not distributing. We're just multiplying outside the house, outside the house. It's 20 root 15 divided by 3. That's it. All right, beautiful people, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. If you're in my class and you have your homework assignment, please go ahead and get started on that. Thank you.